Hi, everybody. We are very excited this morning. We are here to do a recap of the summer box office for 2017. My friend Conrado joined me in May to talk about our predictions of what we thought would be the top 10. And so today we're going to look over what was the actual top 10, some trends, some different things, and compare it to see how we did with our predictions. So it's going to be really fun.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're back.
Right.
Yeah, a dinosaur story.
Yeah.
I am Conrado, so I'm here. I was here in May. I and Rachel tried to predict what was going to be the most successful movies of the summer, and now we come here with our tail between our legs to talk about what actually happened.
Yeah, exactly. I think I only got, as far as placement, I think I only got one right.
Yeah, I think I got one or two, but it was kind of tough.
Yeah, exactly. But I warned people that I was terrible at predictions. So hopefully nobody took mine too seriously.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's talk about according to Box Office Mojo, let's talk about what actually went down for this summer. And
let's do it.
And
okay, but maybe before we go to that, how about how did you do in the list? So you said you got one placement correct, which is impressive. Usually me, I get zero, or and I think I got two placements correct. But how many of the movies that you put in your top 10 actually ended up in the actual top 10?
So let's see here. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I had 7 that were actually in the top 10.
That's not too bad.
Oh wait, no, I had 8 because I changed from my blogging. So I actually had the only ones I missed completely on was Baywatch and The Mummy. Those were my 2 complete misses.
And I actually did pretty well. I'm surprised. The only one that I didn't get in the top 10 was Alien Covenant, which didn't do nearly as well as I thought it was going to. But other than that, I got 9 out of 10. And I also got just one placement correct, and that was Cars 3.
Oh, yeah. My only one was Spider-Man Homecoming. I had that at 3, and it came in at 3. So
there you go. Okay, so let's get into it. I'll let you.
Okay, so the number 10 came in. It just barely made it into the top 10 this weekend. Was Girls Trip. So it came in at $104 million. Just barely surpassed Baby Driver, which was 11. And I had a feeling when I did my blog predictions, I had Rough Night at number 10. So I had a feeling that one of these raunchy female, there were 3 this summer. There was Snatched, Rough Night, and Girls Trip. And I had a feeling that one of them would be in contention. I just picked the wrong one. And then I changed it for our podcast to Cars 3 as my 10th. But yeah, Girls Trip, it ended up being a huge hit. And I remember you were pretty high on it in our podcast.
Well, I thought kind of like what you did. What's interesting is that the 2 out of those 3 raunchy girl movies, as you say, were actually didn't do much business, right? Both Snatched and Rough Night was a huge flop. It only made, trying to find it on the list over here, it only made 22 million. So that's not good at all. So, and I thought back then, and it seems like that kind of came to be the case, that Girls Trip, because it was catering to a group of people who don't get a lot of movies made about them, got all the ladies to the theater, and they all had a good time, and it wasn't so much the rough I mean the raunch thing that got people in the theater, but more the representation and diversity sort of thing that made it a hit.
Yeah, and evidently I haven't seen it. Evidently it's a good movie, so that always helps too.
Yeah, it is pretty good. It's really funny.
Mm-hmm. That
yeah,
always.
And people in the theater were loving it. It's one of those sort of movies that just came at the right time, and people were just willing to go and have a good time, and it was made for the right group of people at the right time, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So we had, I think, two years in a row where there's been an African American audience type film that has come through into the top 10. And I think that the director of Girls Trip, it's interesting if you look at his trajectory. Like he's somebody who's really good at working with small budgets and making decent sized hits.
Oh yeah.
He did the Best Man movies, which I was saying he did last year's the Barbershop movie, which I did actually see that, and I actually thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that one, but yeah, it seems like his model of making things, it's not unlike, kind of making those cheap horror movies, then they make a lot of money and bring in a lot of, revenue. So I think it's working out for him, and this is probably the biggest hit he's ever had, right? So that's hopefully gonna allow them to make more movies like this, and
It's interesting how you sometimes just have these directors who nobody would recognize their name, but they are, bankable people who put out. I think most of his movies are fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't know. It's just interesting. Malcolm D. Lee is his name. So
yeah.
So okay, yeah. So that came in at number 10, $104 million domestic on let's see here, $31 million. Oh no, that's opening weekend.
Like $19 million, huh? Right? That's what I get from box office.
$19 million. That's right. $19 million budget. So
yeah,
good for them. That's cool.
So that's amazing. That's a huge hit.
So now this next one was a big surprise to me. I think it's kind of a good surprise, I guess. Is the number 9 is Transformers: The Last Night. That was a lot lower than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, me too. I think I put it at number 5 or so. So yeah.
Yeah, I had it at number 4. So looks like that franchise has finally kind of wore its welcome. Even internationally, it hasn't been as big of a hit as people thought. Just over $600 million, which I believe the last Transformers movie, I think it made over $1 billion. So, or it was close.
Yeah.
And
right.
So kind of interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see next year when they have a different director for the Bumblebee. They're doing a Bumblebee movie.
That's coming out next year?
I think so. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not positive. But anyway, the next Transformers movie is going to be directed by Travis Knight, who did Kubo and the Two Strings. So it will be interesting to see if people are just sort of over the Transformers and, sort of, because sometimes that happens. Like,
well, yeah, it definitely looks that way at the moment, right? To put things a little bit into perspective a little bit more, I thought in my predictions I put in that Transformers Last Night would make more than $200 million. I was thinking 225 million, around that ballpark, and it actually ended up making 130. So it hasn't closed yet, so it's probably going to make a little bit more money, but it's not going to go far beyond that, and that is not a good look for the Transformers movies, which usually end up being some of the most successful movies of the year, right? So it definitely seems like something has changed in people's mind about this franchise. They finally have caught up to the fact that these movies are now good.
Right. And it's a shame because I really thought there was a little bit of potential to do something nutty and crazy and fun in that regard, but it just ended up being, I literally felt kind of nauseous after I saw it. My stomach was upset because they kept changing the aspect ratio on the screen like over and over and over again, and it made you sick after a little bit. And so yeah, it's just like, how can it not, like Transformers fighting Nazis should be fun. Like that sounds fun to me.
Yeah,
but wasn't.
Yeah, that is the weird thing about these Transformers movies for me, is that on paper they should be fun, right? I always thought that's why people see them, and I struggle to have fun at them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what happens when they change it up, right? Because Michael Bay is stepping out, like you say. Travis Knight, who is a very interesting, kind of unusual choice. We'll see how he does, and if he can bring some of his, visual prowess to the Transformers universe. Because, if nothing else, Kubo and the Two Strings is a beautiful, beautiful movie.
Right.
So maybe,
exactly.
hopefully, we'll get some of that.
Yeah, and it had some ambition, had some. It's at least we might get some artistry. And I think of all of the Transformers characters, outside of maybe Optimus Prime, Bumblebee is one of the more interesting characters. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next year or whenever it's coming out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an interesting number 9. Number 8, your favorite movie of the summer, is War for the Planet of the Apes. It totaled at $141 million.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I had this at 6.
Yeah, and I had it at number 9. I said it would do $155 million, which is not too far away from what it ended up doing. It might crawl up to there, but I see it's probably unlikely that it'll get there at this point. And maybe will come to 145 or something, I guess, by the end of its run, which is not bad. Do you know how the other Planet of the Apes movies have done?
The last one, Dawn, made $208 million.
Okay, so it's a bit of a step down from that.
Yeah. And it makes sense. I think there were two things going on. One, it's not going to be a movie for everyone. They definitely went for something that was pretty bold, I guess, and that was not going to be to everyone's taste. It's just not. So, whereas Dawn had a lot more sort of summary kind of elements to it, with the whole sort of Rambo apes fighting, kind of thing. Like that's going to please, let's say, like your typical teenager is going to like something like Dawn, I think, a lot more than War. And also, they also had it coming out the week after Spider-Man Homecoming, and I think that really hurt it.
And not only that, but I think it was kind of sandwiched between Spider-Man, and then the next week you got Dunkirk and Girls Trip. So I think there was just a lot of competition around it, and plus what you say, the fact that the movie was quite dark and unlike the kind of thing that most people want to see over the summer, I guess. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a movie for everyone. It wasn't your typical blockbuster in many ways. So
exactly. And it came in worldwide $346 million was the total. I'm not sure on the worldwide on Dawn, but it definitely was a step down. And the budget is $150 million, so they're going to lose money on.
Well, they made some money international, but they're probably not too thrilled about it. Do we know if they had further plans for this franchise? Because it seemed like this was the last movie in the trilogy and kind of like a bit of a end chapter, right?
Yeah.
At least from watching the movie itself.
Yeah. I think that if it had done well, they would have found a way. to, they're already talking about doing a new Hunger Games spinoff. They're going to be doing a new. There's some talk about doing a new Twilight. So
right. So it's true. Things will never go away. So we will have more Planet of the Apes one day. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. But we know it would definitely not be from Matt Reeves, because he's going to be doing the Batman and going to be. So it would probably have I would assume it would have a different director, and if they did, but yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon after this.
Yeah, I did not realize that the movie was actually kind of a disappointment at the box office. I thought those numbers were kind of okay for this type of movie, but it seems like it isn't. It is kind of a big deal that
it's a very expensive movie, and so that's why I think they will probably end up with when you take marketing and everything into account. I think that they will either break even or lose a little bit on that movie.
So. That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. There you go. So okay, so the next movie, so number 7 is Cars 3. Yes. And so this was made $148 million domestically, and it made $309 million internationally, and it doesn't have a production budget on Watch Mojo, but I'm guessing it's somewhere around 120 million.
Yeah, do we know? Yeah, a lot of the Pixar movies don't have their production budgets up, huh?
I think that they're usually somewhere in that 120 to, Good Dinosaur was, I think, closer to 200 because of all the delays and everything.
But, I have Inside Out at 175 for production budget. That's the most recent one that I can find.
Okay. So yeah,
so it's probably around there, right?
Yeah, probably somewhere around there, probably. But yeah, so this got to be a disappointment for Pixar.
Yeah, well, it's not a disappointment for me because it's the only one that I got in the correct placement. So Cars 3, number 7. I did think it was going to make more money than this, honestly. I thought it was going to be, I thought it would do as well as Cars 2, which was around 190. I thought this stood a chance to make even more money, considering that it's a better movie than Cars 2. But it was actually the opposite, and not only that, but it's the least successful Pixar movie in the U.S. Other than The Good Dinosaur, right? It's 148 right now, and A Bug's Life made 162. So yeah, it's not doing that well.
I think we've seen this year that even if it's a more quality or a quality film, that certain franchises can't sort of escape the stink of their predecessors. Like with Transformers, which wasn't more quality, but anyway, Transformers, and then with Smurfs is another example, because Smurfs Lost Village was, in my opinion, way better than either of the two previous. But I think that people, it's expensive to go to the movie theaters, and especially if you're taking your kids, you're going to spend $50, $100 depending on where you live, and you want to get food and stuff, and you want it to be a good looking movie. And I had Cars, I finally put it in at number 10, Cars 3, because my worry was this crowded June that they had for animation, and so I think the one that suffered the most was probably the best, not probably, it was the best out of 3, was Captain Underpants, which only made $73 million. Luckily, it was only on a $38 million budget, so it still did okay, but it should have made more money. But
can you remind me what the other animated movie in June was? It was Cars 3 and Captain Underpants and
Despicable Me 3.
Despicable Me 3, of course. All right.
But it was just really crowded. And I feel like also we're going to talk about Wonder Woman in a bit, but I feel like most everything suffered a little bit in June because of how big Wonder Woman was. And so,
and it became a little bit of a family movie as well, right? I feel
yes.
like everyone was going to see it, so obviously these animated movies kind of suffered a little bit about it.
I think so.
I do wonder if we're seeing a little bit of uh, a downturn, I guess, in the what I've been calling the CG animation bubble sort of thing. I feel like ever since Pixar became really big, and then we had Shrek and that sort of thing, we've had this moment in which making a CG movie with a big enough studio and a certain amount of money is usually gonna make the movie quite successful. I
Yeah.
think most animated movies break 100 million, and we're seeing a lot of them this year that are not getting there. So I wonder if there's something that people are finally getting a little bit of a fatigue about talking animals that are funny and that sort of thing. The way they kind of grew out of let's say the Disney musicals of the 90s or that sort of thing,
I
I
think
don't
there's
know if
some truth to that. I do. And let's hope. I'm hopeful that DreamWorks, now that they're going to be under Universal from this point onward, I hope that they, take from this that it's smart to make your movie on a lot smaller budget, because then you can. But they probably won't. They'll probably take the lesson of, oh, we should do what we did with Boss Baby, because that made tons of money. So.
Was that an expensive movie, The Boss Baby? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it. I know it's over $100 million budget for the Boss Baby, but I'm not positive on the actual.
Right.
Anyway,
Right, but okay, sorry, I don't want to go on a tangent, but so Captain Underpants, you say it's only made 73 million, but do you think it's a good number for its budget? Because it was pretty cheap to make, right?
yeah, I mean, it's just if yeah, because the budget was 38 million, so they doubled their budget in the box office. But I don't know, it just felt like it was clearly way better, in my opinion, than any of the others. And in my opinion, it's the best mainstream animated film of the year. But yeah, it doesn't have a production budget on Boss Baby, but I'm pretty sure it's over 100 million. But anyway, yeah. But hopefully they take from that, like having the small budget worked in a way, even though if it didn't get in the top 10. I just feel like it deserved, but it came out the same weekend as Wonder Woman, and
Right.
what are you going to see? So.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. And I haven't caught up with it yet, but I do like this idea of getting a little bit smaller budgets and having some more, sort of inventive, weird animation on the big screen. I would really like that. I feel like some of our animated movies have become the same almost in terms of what they look like and what they feel like. So a little bit of variety is always welcome.
They even make a joke at one point in the movie where they're like, this action scene would have been really expensive, but here's what would have happened. I thought it was funny. It was very self-aware. So, but anyway, so Cars 3, I actually enjoyed the movie. I thought that it was really cool what they did with Cruise as a character. I liked that a lot. And I thought that the Demolition Derby and some other stuff was a lot of fun. And so it definitely has some boring parts, but for the most part, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It was a pretty good movie. And so the thing that people always say about these Cars movies is that even if they don't make that much money, they will make it back in all the merchandise that they sell and that sort of thing.
Yep.
So
yeah,
I think we shouldn't worry too much about the folks at Disney and Pixar.
Yeah, I think so. And all right, so number 6, we had Dunkirk, which has done. I don't know which studio did Dunkirk, but they have to be thrilled with the results.
Yes, Warner Brothers. They're having a good summer.
Warner Brothers. Okay. Yeah, $166 million at the box office. I think it did better than, certainly did better than I thought it would do. I had it at 8 on my list.
I had it at 8 as well. I had it making 180, which is what Interstellar did, and the movie's doing pretty well so far. And it only opened about a month ago, so I think it might be able to get there. Maybe even make more money than that, honestly. So we'll see
Yeah,
how it keeps going.
it's almost at $400 million worldwide and off of $100 million budget. So
Yeah,
they have to be very excited.
it's a big deal and it's a big success. And I think it kind of is. I mean, I get the feeling that definitely Wonder Woman and then this and Dunkirk have been the movies of the summer in a
Yeah,
way.
I
Kind of the
agree.
movie that everybody's talking about and everybody wants to see. You know, the
Mhm.
movie that kind of your grandpa and your dad and your mom are all saying, "Oh, I think I'm gonna go see that one." You know.
Yeah. Well, it was the only movie this summer that was like a true cinematic experience on the big screen. People, even it being on 75 millimeter, they on IMAX, like people wanted to see it on the big screen, and it was a real
Mm-hmm.
sort of experience to have.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm pretty happy. It's a good movie, and it's a really well made movie, and
Yeah,
the kind of movie that we usually don't get in the summer. So it's good to see
hmm,
that it can do well.
agreed. I really enjoyed it. It was a really cool experience to be sort of part of that moment of history and sort of feel like it felt very real, particularly with the sound design and the watching on IMAX. It just felt really. Did you get to see it on 75 millimeter?
Yes, 70 millimeter IMAX.
70.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
I am so jealous. I didn't get to. They didn't have it anywhere in Utah, so
yeah. I think it was the one theater in New York that was showing it. So that's one of
yeah.
the good things.
I would have had to the closest one to me would have I would have had to drive to the Grand Canyon to see it.
Hey, you should have made a road trip out of it. Why not?
So okay, so yeah, that was interesting. And so number 5 was Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Mm-hmm.
That came in total gross at $171 million, which was a
Yes.
big, I think it was a pretty big step down from the previous Pirates movie. Globally, it's done very well, $789
Mm-hmm.
million dollars.
Yeah. So that's about 175 here in the U.S. and about 600 million
Yeah,
overseas. So that's a lot of money. So it's doing pretty well internationally.
yeah, it had a pretty massive budget, $230 million. Holy
Yeah.
cow!
Well, Johnny Depp has to buy all that wine. So
Yeah. And did you end up seeing that? Did you?
I did see it. Um, it was alright, I guess.
Yeah,
No, I'm kidding. It wasn't that good. Yeah. Did you see it? You
I
must have,
did.
right?
I did. I gave
Yeah.
it a C plus. I thought it was
Okay.
just entertaining enough to give like the most. That's my most mildest recommendation is a C plus. And I thought like there were some fun action set pieces. I like the guillotine scene. I thought was entertaining, and I thought it had.
Yeah.
But overall, I just think that I thought that Johnny Depp overplayed the drunk Jack Sparrow. Like he's always been kind of drunk, but always sort of smart too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah,
It's kind of crazy. I after watching this movie, I watched the first Pirates movie, and I was kind of blown away by how different his performance was
yeah,
in the first one. He was being like absolutely restrained in the first movie compared to what the hell he's doing now. I don't know.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
I watched all 5 the week because I'd only seen 1 and 2 because I really hated 2 when it first came out, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not quite as bad as I remembered it, but it's still pretty convoluted.
It is.
And then I watched the 3rd and the 4th, and
Mm-hmm.
this definitely I would say a step up from 3 and 4, but that's not necessarily saying all that much.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see. They had an Easter or an after credits scene, whatever you call it. It'll be interesting to
Mm-hmm.
see if they do another one. I mean, I guess it made enough that maybe,
Uh,
but it
yeah.
seems like
Yeah, I mean, I predicted the movie to make more money than it did. I said it would make 200 million, and it didn't. And if we're being if we look into the future with realistic glasses, I think I'm pretty sure Dunkirk is gonna make more money than Pirates when all is said and done.
Yeah.
So it probably won't stay at number 5 of the summer for long. And but even though I predicted it to make more money, I got the feeling that I was kind of thinking it was going to make less money than that. I got the feeling that it was going to be kind of a Transformers situation in which people were finally going to get tired of the franchise somehow. But it seems like it kind of keeps going. It certainly keeps going internationally. And even here, it's limping along. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think I thought that it was going to be this year's Alice Through the Looking Glass, and it wasn't.
Right.
It certainly wasn't that.
Yeah.
So I didn't even have it in my top 10. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I think if they did a 6th movie, and it brings back Elizabeth and Will Turner, that I could see that being marketable, and so wouldn't surprise me if they did. But
right, the only thing that I can think of that would stop them is two things. One of them is that these movies are probably getting very expensive, and I don't know what the receipts look like, but if they're not making as much money as they need to be, and they probably need to be making like a huge amount of money to make back all the money that Disney is spending in them. So I don't know if the accounting works out. I feel like maybe it is not working out the way they want it to. So that could be a way in which we don't get a next movie. And the other thing is, of course, if like something crazy happens with Johnny Depp and he implodes or something like that, because Lord knows what's going on with him.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting how it all depends on what the expectations of the stockholders were and, the other people, because you look at something like Batman v Superman making, making almost $900 million. And yet that was conceived as a box office disappointment, which because they were expecting it to make Avengers money, not when you have Batman and Superman. So it just a lot of it depends on what the expectations were going into it, I think. So anyway, number 4 was Despicable Me 3 with $251 million, and it is doing much better than that overseas. It's almost at $1 billion, $949 billion. I mean, $1 billion. And so it's pretty interesting. And I thought that it was going to do even better domestically. I've had it at number 2 for the year, and it ended up at number 4.
Yeah, I had it number 3.
The Despicable Me, I don't know if you heard, the Despicable Me franchise, including Minions, is now the most profitable franchise ever. It just surpassed Shrek this summer now as being the most profitable ever, which makes my Toy Story heart very sad.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about all of this. You're saying Despicable Me, you're saying Shrek. I'm having a bit of a meltdown over here, but okay.
Yeah. So maybe when Toy Story 4 comes out, it can change that, but I doubt it. But yeah, so it's another movie I gave a C+ to, because it actually was a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. I think that it's better than Minions, and I think it's better than Despicable Me 2, in my opinion. The villain actually had some pretty funny stuff, and I thought that the Minions themselves actually made me laugh like twice. And
twice. That's an achievement for them.
Yes, that's really good. They sing the Modern Major General from Pirates of Penzance, and that I thought was funny. It made me laugh. So, but it's not a good movie, but it's just not awful. So
it has made as much money as the first Despicable Me movie at this point.
Okay.
But not as much as Despicable Me 2, which is the most successful, and not as much as Minions either. So, but as you say, it is doing pretty well internationally. So what do we think about the future of this franchise?
I think that, well, we know they're coming out with a Minions 2.
Okay. All right. Well, there it goes. There it
Yeah.
goes.
So the world, yeah, because the world likes to be mean to me.
Mhm.
We're getting a Boss Baby 2, a Minions 2, a Trolls 2, a Sing 2, Secret Life
Oh
of
boy.
Pets 2. Yeah. So, and this movie, I mean, Illumination is genius. It's unbelievable at what they're
In
able
a
to do, and as far
you're
as box
you're
office.
right. You're talking in a like evil genius type
Yeah.
of way. Is what I was gonna say.
Because it only cost $80 million to make, and so I mean they made almost $1 billion off of 80 million. So it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, they know how to keep the money coming in. Yeah. I
So,
didn't see the movie. My friend Angela was very kind, and she recapped. I feel like every single minute of the movie for me, so I feel like I can't see it at this point.
yeah, I definitely, it's not what I would recommend, but I guess it just wasn't like painfully awful like Minions was for me. So
All right, that's
there you
good.
go. Okay, so number 3, we had Spider-Man: Homecoming. This was $314 million, and
Wow.
it had international at 725. And this is certainly fine, but it's lower than I expected it to
Okay.
make a $175 million budget. Uh, I I thought that, I mean, this is the lowest grossing Spider-Man movie.
Oh, it is. Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Even
I thought it
Spider-Man.
was doing pretty well. I was thinking it wasn't. I, I was shooting for around 300 million for this movie. So, wait, no, it's not. Amazing Spider-Man 2 made 202, right?
Um,
That's what I'm looking
maybe
at
yeah.
the. It's certainly it made less money than the first three Spider-Man movies. I have Spider-Man. Oh, it might be internationally the least
Yeah.
successful. Wait, that doesn't make sense, does it?
Well, maybe that's just what I had heard. But no, it
Hmm.
looks like Amazing Spider-Man made $709 million.
That's international, right?
International. Let's see. Sorry, maybe I misheard that. 700, yeah,
Yeah.
$709 million. So
Okay.
never mind. Sorry, I was wrong.
All
But
right.
but anyway, uh, being in the MCU, I thought it would make a little bit more money than that, but it certainly, it's a lot of money. So
Yeah,
uh,
300 million is nothing to sneeze at, you
yeah,
know.
exactly. So yeah, what do you think about Spider-Man: Homecoming
In terms of the movie itself
hmm
or its box office?
in terms of the movie itself?
Just the movie itself. I thought it was fun. It was a fun movie. There's a couple things that I feel like. Um, okay, so I get the feeling that they're trying to turn Spider-Man a little bit into like mini Iron Man, and that part of it I'm not thrilled about.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing with the suit and the computer that talks to him. I wasn't a huge fan of that part of it. But I did like all of the high school stuff. I thought Michael Keaton was good.
hmm
Um, I thought he was a really interesting, cool villain, especially compared to other Marvel Cinematic Universe villains,
hmm
which are pretty boring most of the time. I thought that his story was pretty compelling, and the scene in the car when he confronts Peter about it—that's a
hmm
great scene. So I
hmm
thought it was a pretty good movie. It was a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I think I feel like the hyperbole's been a little strong on it. People saying it's the best Spider-Man movie, and it's like
Yeah.
that. Uh, but I enjoyed it. It was good. I thought that we were basically on the same page with Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Hmm.
It's kind of, I thought. I don't think that, to me, I thought that the Vulture was good. I enjoyed it. I thought, yeah, the scene of the car is really good. He's a good villain. I don't think he's personally, I don't think he's as good as Loki, but that some are saying.
Right. Yeah, but he's like better than everyone else
Yeah.
that we've gotten so far.
So yeah, it's interesting, and yeah, so we will be seeing him next in in Infinity War, which is gonna be
yeah,
interesting.
Spider-Man goes to
Yeah.
space. I have one more thing to say about Spider-Man: Homecoming, which is, remember how like a couple years ago they were talking about, before they rebooted him with the Marvel Universe or whatever, they were talking about an Aunt May movie they were gonna make.
Wasn't that just a joke?
Well, I took it very seriously, and I really want to see this Aunt May movie because I want Marissa Tomei to be the lead in the movie. Because we, as a species, I feel like we deserve that, and I feel like she deserves better than she's gotten so far.
Hey, I'd watch it.
So,
I'd watch it.
if someone's listening to me who has the money to make that happen, just know I will buy a ticket.
Well, I'm really curious to see what happens with this animated Spider-Man movie next year. It's got a great cast. They have Mahershala Ali is going to be in it, recent Oscar winner.
Yeah,
I think
who's doing the Spider-Man voice? Not him, right?
No, but the story is by Alex Hirsch, who I love. Alex Hirsch. He's the guy who did this show called Gravity Falls, which I've been wanting to get you to watch the show for a long time because I think you'd love it. It's so good, and he's just the coolest guy ever. So I'm really excited about that, and I hope that it's a good movie, and I hope it does well. So anyway, it's Sony. Right. It's the only thing that I don't love, but
Sony. Do they make animated movies? Anything that I might have seen?
Yes, they're making 3 this year. They made Smurfs Lost Village, which I actually liked. Then they made the Emoji movie.
Oh, Emoji Movies, them. All right.
Yeah. Okay. And then the Star, which looks horrible.
The Star?
Yeah,
that's supposed to be like a nativity story sort of thing, right?
The trailer was atrocious.
Okay, I haven't seen the trailer.
It was really bad. So yeah, they have twerking doves in the trailer. So
well, that just sounds like great quality entertainment to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. Right? So okay, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. It's a Miles Morales Spider-Man, so it has a whole African American cast, which I'm curious to see how it turns out.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they have made good movies in the past, Sony. A lot of people like the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs movies. A lot of people, they did the Surf's Up. They have a few good movies.
Oh, yeah. So. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that movie.
Yeah. And they also worked with Aardman to make Arthur Christmas, which is one of my, I think, most underrated animated films. Right. It's really good. Anyway, so then number 2 was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This is both of our number 1s.
Yeah, so this is where we start to eat the crow.
Yeah.
For reals. Because we both thought it was going to be number 1. Yeah. And I'm at this point, I need an intervention because it's the 3rd year in a row that I put a Marvel movie at number 1, and then they don't end up at number 1. So I should have known. I should have known.
Yeah, I mean, you had Wonder Woman at 2, though, so you were pretty close.
So that's why I'm especially mad, because I thought if someone was going to dethrone Guardians of the Galaxy, it would be Wonder Woman. But of course, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? And, here we go. Here we are.
Yeah, $200 million budget, made $62 million, and it had, most people certainly liked it better than I did. So, yeah, it's a success, but yeah, we both thought it would be number 1. I feel like even the people that liked it have already kind of forgotten about it a little bit. It's just one of those Marvel movies that I feel like, flashes hot at the box office, but then just kind of loses momentum. Even I did a whole summer review with my friend David last week, and he's like, when I came out of that movie, I was just so excited. I loved it, and I've already kind of forgotten about it, was his sentiment. I sort of think that that's probably kind of true.
As a person who liked this movie quite a bit, I gotta say it is true.
Yeah.
For me as well. Although maybe take it with a grain of salt, because that's how I feel about most of the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Whether I like them or not, I kind of forget about them pretty quickly. So there's that.
Yeah.
the movie did better than the first Guardians of the Galaxy, but not by much. Well,
Did it?
333 to 389, at least
Okay.
domestically, right?
I think the thing
And
is that nobody thought that the first one was going to do that much. You know, it was this
yeah.
risky
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
movie
yeah.
with this talking raccoon and stuff, and
Absolutely.
so I think that's maybe why it feels like this one didn't do as well as the first one, but it actually did better. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Well, it made more money, but I don't know if it did better because, like you say, about the expectations, and probably
Yeah,
maybe the budget for the first one was smaller.
yeah, I'm sure.
Feel like yeah. So, um, but I think they're probably like, I don't think Disney and Marvel are upset about it. I think
No.
they made money out of it, and most people like the movie fine. The Guardians of the Galaxy will keep going. The Marvel Cinematic Universe will keep going forever and
Yeah,
ever.
and we get them also. Everybody's in Infinity War. Everybody and their uncle is in Infinity War. So we'll see them again
Yeah.
next year, and it should be interesting. So I was disappointed by it. But it's not like it's awful. But I just didn't think. I gave it a C minus because I was disappointed. But anyway, so number one was
Mhm.
Wonder Woman.
Of
Woohoo!
course.
Yay!
Yes.
$404 million domestic, and yeah. So, what do you think? Wonder Woman, how they were able to catch sort of lightning in a bottle. Or what do you think was the?
Yeah. Well, I had the feeling that looking at the movies of the summer, I was kind of trying to look for what movie it could be that would be, like you say, the one that captures lightning in a bottle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and the only one that came to mind was Wonder Woman, just because it was the only one that was big enough and yet felt new enough, like something that we hadn't seen before, in order to do that, right? Because most of the big movies were all sequels. We had Guardians, we had Spider-Man, Pirates, Transformers, that sort of thing. That's all stuff we've seen before. And even though we have seen Wonder Woman in Batman v Superman, it really did feel like something that was both something that people like, superhero movies that they're familiar with, and also something that we hadn't seen before, which is the female superhero aspect of it.
Yeah.
And Wonder Woman, such a famous character, finally having her own movie and that sort of thing. So it kind of makes sense, even though it also is very surprising that it did as well as it did, in a way.
And I think having such great reviews, I think that helped. It just sort of, and I just think I loved it. It's my favorite mainstream movie of the year. It might be my favorite comic book movie next to if you count, unless The Incredibles counts as a comic book movie, that's my favorite. But I just love this movie. I thought it was, I know I'm totally aware of its flaws. I get it. But I just bonded. I saw it 4 times because I just bonded emotionally with the character in a way that when you have that kind of emotional bond with the character, you don't really care about the flaws that much. You know, that that to me is just so key in a movie that you really love, because no movie is perfect. And I don't know. I just the first 2 times I saw it, I'm not joking, I was bawling my eyes out. Like, it just made me, like, I'm an easy cry. I cry pretty easily in a movie, but I don't cry like that. I don't cry like I cried. And there was something that was sort of spiritual for me about it. That this idea of sort of this person kind of coming, it was almost like, I don't know, this person coming to terms with human frailty and the way that we treat each other. I just found that so moving and beautiful, and I just loved it so much. It made me so happy. And like I said, I saw it 4 times. I probably maybe will squeeze in one more viewing, because I took my niece, I took my mom, she loved it. They both loved it. And my 2 other nieces, they went and they loved it. And I don't know, I just thought it was I just loved it. I thought it was a great movie.
Yeah, and all that you're saying doesn't only, it speaks obviously to how you feel about the movie, but I think it also speaks to the movie's success, right? I feel like that connection and that bond is kind of what has made it such a big hit. And I feel like a lot of people, and women especially, kind of were sort of starved for this kind of movie. Like, you know what I mean? It really, really connected with them, and with good reason. It's a good movie, and it kind of brings this sort of empowerment that we've seen in movies lately. I feel like we've had it kind of with Rey in Star Wars, and also so there's some of that in Mad Max Fury Road, obviously. But like this was like it was almost explicitly that, right? But because I feel like those movies were kind of sneaking that into the plot, and this was like front and center, saying Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? Woman is in the title. This is what it was. It felt almost like a gift to all these people, and I think that's what makes it so special and so successful.
Yeah, it felt that way to me. Plus, like, there was real emotional stakes that, you know, not to spoiler, but like what happens to Steve, like that was emotional to me. That was and you don't always get that in superhero movies, and it's not always earned, like with Superman and Batman v Superman. That this was something that was emotional, that was earned, and they had such great chemistry. And I thought it was so cool because it was so smart to set it in World War I for a lot of reasons, but it was able to be just its own story. There was no Easter eggs to Justice League. There was no it was just its own thing, and I think that's also what made it kind of special. And so anyway, I'm just so thrilled that it did so well, and I'm just so thrilled for Patty Jenkins. I think it's a great accomplishment for a woman director, and any director, but she just did a tremendous job, and I'm really excited for her future too, to see what she does next.
She's coming back for Wonder Woman 2, correct?
I think it was finally, solidified. Warner Brothers has to regret not, putting her under contract because they had to, I'm sure, pay her a lot more, which is deserved.
Yeah, and good for her.
Contract. Yeah. She did a great, tremendous job, I think. And so I'm just so excited. And you can see in, so they're doing massive reshoots, retooling, everything with Justice League. And even in just the latest trailer, it's definitely a lot of Wonder Woman. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these reshoots are pretty Wonder Woman heavy. And I think that's no surprise that they brought in Joss Whedon, because he is known for female characters. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how Justice League turns out, because you've got this weird combination of Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder that I'm just curious to see how it turns out. But I'm excited now just because I'll see anything with Wonder Woman at this point. So anyway, it's going to be interesting. So
I agree.
Yeah. So, okay. So that was the top 10. So just the international box office, it's pretty similar. I mean, I wasn't able to get it for the summer, but this is just for the year. But one thing that there's a couple interesting things I might need to talk about. There's this movie called Wolf Warrior 2. Have you heard about this?
Oh, yes. That's a Chinese movie, right?
Yeah. You should go. I think it's playing in New York. You should see it just out of curiosity. I would. But yeah, it's made $773 million.
Yeah, so that actually makes it the biggest, one territory gross outside of the US, right? Yeah. So like domestically in China, it's not only the most successful movie there, but it's one of the most successful movies in one country of all time, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain this properly, but I think you get it.
Yeah. It beat Avatar, because what Avatar made in the United States, it's already made more than Avatar, and so in China. So yeah, it's really interesting how we're becoming not only sort of more reliant on the international box office, but the international box office is now creating its own property that appeals to these specific areas. And I really loved this year Bahubali 2, which was a big hit in India. and it's just totally insane, crazy. Like if you saw it and hated it, I totally get it because it's just completely over the top. But I thought it was so refreshing and fun. So yeah, you're getting these movies that are made for particular areas that are big successes at the box office. So it's interesting to see how that'll turn out and grow in upcoming years.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if it comes to a point where one of these movies breaks through in the United States in a way that, it's been a while since a foreign movie has been actually a big hit. I feel like the 90s had a couple of them. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was obviously huge, but since then we haven't really had something of that level. So
yeah. Agreed. It will be really interesting to see. The other interesting thing about the international box office this year was Fate of the Furious. So the 8th movie in the series. It made $225 million domestic, which is nothing to sneeze at, but it made over $1 billion overseas. So it's $1.2 billion, which is just very interesting.
Yeah, well, I think that franchise has always been big overseas. And obviously they have a very diverse cast, and they also have all this they go to all these different countries and that sort of thing. So that might be part of it. What appeals, what makes it an appealing thing across the globe, let's say.
Yeah. So the ones that we got wrong, let's talk about those for just a second. So I had 2 movies that I put in my top 10 that didn't end up. So Baywatch ended up being a big stinker, and I was going off of The Rock just because Central Intelligence and San Andreas. And
there were indications that could have been a big hit. I think part of it is that I didn't see it, but everything that came out said that it was absolutely horrible. So I think that's part of it.
I think so too. And it ended up at number 17 at the box office. So pretty bad. Did pretty
58 million, right? I got it. 58 million on a 69 million budget. So not great. Although it did pretty well internationally, I think. It made 118 million. So, The Rock, maybe he has more success when he's dubbed in different languages. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe he shouldn't produce his own content. Maybe he should leave that to other people, because it doesn't seem like it worked out this time. But everybody has their flops, so what are you going to do? All right, and then my other big miss was The Mummy.
The Mummy, The Mummy, huh? What a thing that happened. It played in theaters. You wouldn't know it, but it did.
I mean, I think maybe it could have made a little bit more money if it was also. I mean, it was a bad movie, but also.
Did you see it?
I did.
Okay.
I finally saw it in July, and but also, it's just up against. Why would you go see The Mummy if you could see Wonder Woman instead? Like, that's nonsensical. And The Mummy ended up being kind of everything that's wrong with blockbusters today. It was just soulless, and it did have some fun action set pieces that were, Tom Cruise knows how to be an action guy. Course. And so those were fun, but the comic relief was awful. It just all the attempts to create this dark universe was awful. And
I think that's the also a big part of it is this whole, you say this represents everything that's wrong with blockbuster cinema, and that whole thing of like trying to force a cinematic universe down people's throat is kind of exhausting. And these people over at Universal, they just keep insisting that these monster movies are gonna become a franchise, god damn it, and they just keep going.
Well, and it's such a shame because if you're gonna do Universal monster movie cinematic universe, why not make it like a cool sort of like in the style of sort of The Conjuring, make it like a real like scary movie, you know, like those movies were scary. Like why try to make it Mission Impossible? I that just didn't make any sense to me, and it wasn't scary at all. The Mummy was not scary at all.
There are a couple different ways in which I can see that sort of monster movie universe working, and they definitely decided to go with the most boring option.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
it just feels that in Kong Skull Island, which is also trying to set up a cinematic universe, both just felt so corporate to me, just very bland and just very underwhelming for both of them. So it's disappointing, to say the least. So I was wrong on The Mummy. What can I say? So which ones did you get wrong? Did you have?
I got one wrong, which is Alien Covenant, which made $74 million. I thought it was gonna go all the way up to 150 just because people seem to like these alien movies.
It's another franchise that I think sort of pushed it one too far. Or a lot of people didn't like Prometheus, and so I think it kind of had a stink from that a little bit. Or
and
I didn't see it, so
right, and I think they were kind of hoping that changing the title to actually say Alien was going to help them out in that way. But it wasn't a very good movie.
A bunch of my friends hated it. My friend Tony, it's his like least favorite of the year. Like he hated it.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. It's definitely towards the bottom of what I've seen this year. And yeah, I don't know what to say. I thought it was going to make some money, and it didn't. And I'm okay with that. I can live my life without seeing another Alien movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I feel like it's sort of similar to Terminator. Like they just keep trying to make these, they just can't let go of the franchise, and there was like 2 good Terminator movies, and the rest have been horrible, and there were 2 good Alien movies, the rest have been pretty bad. So I don't know, it's interesting.
And well, what are you gonna do? People just that's the place we're at the moment. People just look for anything that was once successful, and they try to replicate the success. And
I don't think we'll be getting another Alien movie for a while, at least. Do you think?
I guess you never know. I mean, how well did it do overseas? It's made 200 million worldwide, which isn't great, I guess.
Yeah.
Probably we're expecting more than that. So yeah, hopefully we'll get a bit of a rest stop.
Yeah.
Before we get another Alien movie.
I think so. So anyway, it's interesting. Well, so what, just now that we talked about the box office, just in terms of the summer itself, what would you say was your, just out of all movies, your best, your worst, your biggest surprise, and your biggest disappointment?
Okay, so, right, so you say all movies, but are we talking about like sort of big, studio movies? Or
no, just anything.
Anything
in general.
Okay, so let's see. So what's the first question? My favorite.
So what was your favorite of the summer?
My favorite movie of the summer was probably A Ghost Story, which I think you've seen, and I think you didn't like it quite as much as me, but I kind of loved this movie.
Yeah, I gave it a B, so I gave it a
that's pretty good,
positive review. Yeah.
I just feel like it's such a, you can attest to this. Like it's such a unique kind of like movie of the kind that, it can only be made when you have a tiny budget and a big imagination and you have something to say. And a lot of people have problems with it. It's not for everyone, definitely. It just spoke to me on a very personal level. I had that connection, and it was something to look at. It's basically the story of a couple. The guy gets in an accident and he dies, and then he comes back as a ghost, but he is, kind of your classical stereotype of a ghost. So he's basically just a person with a bedsheet on, and he just kind of stands around and witnesses what happens after his death. So it's kind of like this sort of metaphysical drama sort of thing, about the afterlife and about some other things as well, about relationships and letting go and that sort of thing. What can I say? I loved it. It was a great movie.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciated it on kind of a Terrence Malick kind of level. That I'm a Terrence Malick apologizer. I like his movies. I know that a lot of people hate it, but I think that he's still making art. And as sometimes we forget that film is an art, and you make art pieces. And so I kind of thought of it, sort of reminded me of that kind of experience of going to the movies and seeing art. And I think if it had been any longer, I think it would have tried my patience more. But I think it was smart to have it be, I think it was 90 minutes.
I think that's a good point, because part of what I find a little frustrating with Malick, which I like sometimes and sometimes I don't, is that his movies seem to be kind of long and a little repetitive and that sort of thing. I feel like A Ghost Story finds a nice sweet spot into, I feel like it kind of gives you something new as it goes along, and it doesn't repeat itself. I mean, a little bit of the structure of the movie is a little bit of repetition, but it is kind of like saying something new when it comes back around to what it was.
So my best of the summer, my favorite movie of the year is this documentary called Step, which I just love. I think it is so inspiring. It's about true hero, like real life heroes, and these girls and getting to college, and it's really only incidentally about dancing. It's about these girls and just this community and this school that kind of rallies around them to get them all to college. And I just loved it. I saw it. It doesn't really feel like a summer movie to me because I saw it in January, and so I've been championing it all year because I loved it so much. And anyway, I just think, did you get a chance to see it?
I haven't yet, but it's playing here, so I do want to see it.
I just love it. It's very, it's very inspiring, and in my opinion, and every time I've seen it, people literally stood up and cheered, which makes me happy. So but as far as movies that I saw for the first time this summer, my favorite is Wonder Woman, and I just loved it. So so what, we already know your worst. So we had a whole podcast about it.
For those who don't know, it's the War for the Planet of the Apes.
Yes. So my worst is The Glass Castle. I hated that movie. I thought it was so just the way that they were trying to sell this horrible human being that belonged in jail, in my opinion, off as this free thinker. And he had any right to judge her and how she lived her life as an adult. Really made me mad. And I thought it was, I was almost like shaking when I got out. I was so upset. It really touched a nerve with me and made me really angry. And so I hated it. So that's my worst.
This is the story of a woman who, when she was a child, her parents were these sort of kind of living outside the system, hippie sort of people, right?
Right.
That's what the movie's about?
Yeah. So it's based on this memoir that's a true story about her life. And I haven't read the book, but just everything, the way, because it goes back from the memories of her childhood, which are horrible, to the every once in a while they mix like him being like looking up at the stars and giving this great advice and stuff, and then they go up to 1989, and I just felt like the 1989 sections, it was all just her being lectured all the time on how she should be more like her father, and how she's a big sellout. And I think if it had just been the memories of her childhood, then that would have been better. It obviously would have still been disturbing, but it wouldn't have felt this sense of judgment of her as a character, which really bothered me. And anyway, I hated it. I thought it was awful. And then the other movie that, of course, is awful. I thought The Dark Tower was awful. And I also, of course, thought the Emoji Movie was awful. So,
right. You've seen a lot of stinkers this summer.
It's been sad. And it's just such a shame with The Dark Tower because the novel's actually really cool. And it had a lot of potential with a good cast. They could have done something cool, but they didn't. So, oh well.
All right.
And so, so the biggest surprise for me has to be Bahubali 2, the conclusion.
All right.
I just thought this movie's almost 3 hours. It's definitely not going to be for everyone. It's nuts. I mean, I haven't seen that many. This is actually technically Tollywood, but Bollywood / Tollywood or whatever films. I haven't seen that many, and so maybe I don't have that big a point of reference. But it was just so refreshing and nuts and crazy. And like one minute you have this like elaborate dance number, and then all of a sudden there's like a battle scene where like people are like losing their heads, and it's just like. It was so fun. I just had a blast watching it. I loved it. It was a breath of fresh air. And I feel like so many blockbusters or big epic movies just feel so stale and hollow and lacking any kind of creativity that for me, it's definitely a movie I had never even heard of or thought of. And then I went and saw it because and I saw Bahubali 1 first. Thought that was great. And Bahubali 1 has better songs. The musical numbers are better, although the music is still really good in 2. But the 2 is a little bit easier to follow. It's a little the plot makes a little more sense. Anyway, I just thought it was really fun. It's still in my top 10, and so anyway, that was my biggest surprise of the summer.
All right.
Yeah.
So I should talk about my biggest surprise of the summer. Biggest surprise. Let's see. Maybe I will talk about. Do you have a underrated part? I don't know if I have a surprise, but I have a couple movies that I feel like are a little underrated.
Okay, sure.
So how about this movie Ingrid Goes West, which is a movie that I just saw the other day. I think it came out in July, or it just came out, I think, in August. I don't know. Anyway, it's a movie. It played at Sundance. It stars Aubrey Plaza as this sort of, I guess she's this kind of mentally ill person who is also a stalker. So she's a cyber stalker, actually, and she finds this woman on Instagram who has a lot of followers and lives in California and has all these pictures of her life and whatever. And so she becomes obsessed with this woman. So she moves to California and she tries to become friends with this woman and follows her around and that sort of thing. So it's kind of, it's kind of about how, social media is kind of like invading our lives and changing them and that sort of thing, and how we've changed and the kind of like a sickness sort of thing. But that part of it is not quite as interesting to me as I think the movie has a lot to say about how we as a society, I guess, or just in general, are kind of like not really equipped to deal with a person who has mental issues being around us, right? Because this Ingrid character, she's obviously doing things that are creepy and wrong, but she's mentally ill, so she needs help, and you know what I mean? So it's kind of like this weird tension there that I think it's very interesting, of how most people just don't keep going with it, and she just keeps going with all this whole stalker thing without really getting the help that she needs. And I don't know, there was a lot of truth to at least the limited experience that I have with people like that. You know what I mean? It rang very true to me, and it's something that I have thought about in the past, of like how, it's kind of hard, and a lot of people don't really know how to react when they encounter a person like this.
So that's a theme that I definitely resonate with. So I'm definitely going to see it.
It's and it's a dark comedy. I didn't say that, but it's not like there's some heavy stuff in it, but it's also, I thought, really funny, and it's kind of like this satire of the kind of like this cool LA people who post on Instagram and go to Coachella and that sort of thing. So it's so there's a lot of humor in that if you want to get that sort of thing. And if you're on Instagram and social media, you will have a good time, I think.
Yeah. Well, for me, for underrated, I think the Valerian in the City of Thousand Planets, I get people's criticisms, but for whatever reason, they didn't bother me. Like, I don't know. I didn't think like the acting wasn't great, but I didn't think it was like distractingly bad. I didn't think. I mean, people are like, "Oh, it was really convoluted." I'm like, "Really?" It was just basically two detectives that were like looking for clues, you know, and looking for stuff. And I actually liked the Rihanna part. I thought that was emotional and good. I liked it, and
I like the
so
Rihanna part too.
new. And I saw things I'd never seen before, and I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I think people are being dumb because I think people are conflating the fact that the movie didn't do well with audiences and at the box office with the quality of the movie a little bit,
Yeah.
you know. And I get it that the movie is different from what we usually get, and that's probably why it didn't make that much money. But that's part of what makes it so special. Like, we are talking all the time about how we want movies to be different and to be or feel original and feel like something else, and then we finally get a movie like that and nobody goes to see it, and then everyone who is supposed to champion it is just like, you know, being negative about it.
Yeah.
I
mean, I guess I don't go to a movie like that for like great acting. I mean, I love Star Wars, but it's not like Star Wars has the greatest acting in the world. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, the original Star Wars has horrible acting.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple good performances in it by, you know, Peter Cushing and Alec Guinness, and then everyone else just kind of sucks.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it was. I think critics were too tough on it, and I think it's just a shame. Because I think
the only criticism I will accept of that movie is that Dane DeHaan is not good. I will give them that, because he feels to me like he's miscast, and he just doesn't sell the whole sort of playboy pirate detective sort of thing that he's got going on.
Yeah, I heard somebody say they should have swapped casts and had the Passengers cast as the Valerian cast. I'm like, that would have been the most brilliant idea ever. Have Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. That would have been so.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of those two people, but like they could have made it work, I guess. I mean, definitely he probably would have done a better job than Dane DeHaan. It's not that Dane DeHaan is a bad actor. It's just that this is not the role for him, you know.
Yeah. I think he could have sold it more. So, yeah, I also thought, personally, I thought that 47 Meters Down was underrated. I thought it was if you just want to go to a silly, engaging blockbuster, to me, this was the one to see. I saw it twice. I had a really, both times I just left with a smile on my face, having been really entertained. And like, people are like, oh, the acting wasn't very good, or and I'm like, I don't go to a shark movie for like great acting. I go for like, I thought, tension and sharks. And I liked it. I thought they actually did some cool things with the lighting, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun time at the theater. So, oh well.
All right.
There you go. So yeah, that's some of my underrated. I mean, overrated for me, I think Guardians is overrated. Obviously, that would be my most overrated. I think. I
guess that counts as overrated. Although I feel like, I mean, I guess some people liked it a lot, but I don't feel like anyone's really raving about it, right? I don't know.
When it first came, but it's tempered very quickly.
Oh, okay. You're right.
I also, I really thought Baby Driver was cool. I gave it a positive review, but I do think people that are like, it's this masterpiece and it's the greatest thing ever. The hyperbole was a little strong on it, in my opinion, but I enjoyed it.
That would probably be my pick for overrated, is just because because people are going a little crazy over it, and I enjoyed it as well. But the more I think about it, and it kind of, there are more flaws and things that I look back on and I'm not a huge fan of. So I think it was alright. But people are a lot of people think it's a masterpiece, best movie of the year, and whatever. I don't agree with that. It's an okay movie.
The other one that I loved from the summer was The Big Sick. That's my third favorite movie of the year. That was just such a delight. I thought that was great. So that would be another one I throw out there as a great movie from the summer.
And I will throw out a movie that opened in New York a couple weeks ago, and I think it's opening wider this week, which is called Good Time with Robert Pattinson.
Mm-hmm.
And it's directed by these guys, the Safdie brothers, who are some young-ish New York independent filmmakers, and they're making this movie about this guy who gets into a lot of trouble trying to get his brother out of prison, and he's kind of a hustler and tries to figure things out. It's a very tense movie. It's a very kind of propulsive movie, I guess. It all happens very fast and it's very tense, and he just goes from one place to another trying to make this thing work. And it's a really, really well-made movie. It's a great time. It's one of the best movies I've seen this year. It has a lot to say, I think, about sort of masculinity and like male and white privilege in a way, but it's not really, it doesn't hit you over the head about it. It's just kind of in the background if you read into it. Like, at first glance, this is just a really good movie, really well-made movie about a guy who's trying to get something done and just won't stop until he gets it. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
Cool, that sounds really good. This will be my last one. The other one that I just saw, that I really enjoyed is Brigsby Bear. It was kind of cool because it was all filmed like literally in my neighborhood. Like, I recognize pretty much everywhere that the whole movie is in, and like the final like 10 minutes is all in this movie theater that I go to all the time, and it was just that was sort of fun on that level. But beyond that, it was actually a good movie, and I think you'd like it. I don't know. Sometimes you're unpredictable with your taste. I'm
definitely interested in it.
Yeah, it's a movie that has. It's definitely, I would say, dark comedy, but it's a movie about how something creative can kind of, and the creative power of particularly movie making and making your own films and stuff like that can have this sort of saving sort of power in your life and help you get through horrible things and help you connect with other people. And I thought it was a sweet little film. So
okay.
Yeah. And I also loved an anime film called A Silent Voice. It's a little too long. That's its main thing, the downside to it. But I thought that it was a beautiful, interesting take on the bully narrative. I think worth checking out if you can. So that's sort of my summer. And so yeah, it's been interesting. Would you say that this summer was better at the cinema or last summer, in your opinion?
I'm thinking probably this summer. Last summer was pretty bad, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. I mean, there's a couple, especially for like big releases. Last summer, what did we even have? I'm trying to look at the thing.
Well, there was last summer we had Bourne that was I thought terrible.
Finding Dory,
Suicide Squad,
Secret Life of Pets, Suicide Squad, X-Men Apocalypse. Ghostbusters, the Angry Birds movie, Independence Day. Yeah, so it was pretty bad last year. Last year, of course, had Pete's Dragon, which is great.
Yeah, that was great.
The Shallows, talking about shark movies.
Yeah, that was fun.
Love that.
That was fun.
Yeah, so we had a couple good things. We had a couple of good, smaller, more independent type releases last year. Rather, we had Love and Friendship came out in the summer, which is great.
Yeah, that was really good. The only blockbuster that I remember really, I liked Finding Dory more than you did, but the only blockbuster that I really thought was outstanding, I liked Civil War more than you did also, but I thought Star Trek Beyond was really good last year. I really enjoyed that. But as far as blockbuster entertainment, but yeah, it was very disappointing. Very disappointing last year.
Yeah, and this year, I guess we have some good stuff. Well, we have Wonder Woman for starters. We have Dunkirk, Spider-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, which I liked. Girls Trip, which I also liked. Baby Driver, like we said, not great, but it was a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this was a better summer for me at the movies.
I think so. All right. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much for joining. This was fun to talk about the box office, and we'll have to maybe get together for maybe the fall or winter season and talk about that. So we got some fun stuff coming up. I'm the most excited for The Greatest Showman, and for, of course, The Last Jedi, and I'm also looking forward to Thor Ragnarok because of Taika Waititi. So there's a lot of fun stuff. So yeah. So where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter if you look for Conrado Falco, or on my blog, which is cocohitsny.wordpress.com. That stands for Coco Hits New York. And there you can read some of my reviews. You can read a review of Good Time, which I talked about a couple minutes ago. You can read a review of Logan Lucky, which is also a very good movie.
I really enjoyed that, yeah.
Yeah, and you can also read my special article, Taylor Swift's Biggest Songs Ranked by Their Bridges. Which, and she's releasing some new music this Friday, so why not prepare for the comeback of Taylor Swift by reading what I have to say about her songs.
Yeah, that's a really fun. I really enjoyed that post you did. So you can find me at Smiling LDS Girl on all social media, and this week, tomorrow actually, me and my friend Christine are doing our latest episode of Chicks on Flicks, and we are going to be talking about Bridge Over the River Kwai, so that should be fun tomorrow, and it should be an interesting discussion that we'll have. And yeah, so some things to look forward to. This week for Family Movie Night, we talked about The Iron Giant, which is a classic. So there's a lot of fun stuff on the channel. So thanks so much again for joining me. This was fun.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.